Tales of Veldrith, created by Matty Taylor. Book 6, Eira's Reckoning. Episode 53, Trouble in Jorvik. Jorvik woke to hammers. From the rampart, Eira watched roofs go up and soot come down. Smoke ghosted the air in thin threads. Children carried bundles of thatch. Old men planed beams at a trestle table. The winter had been hard. The fight with the solar cult had been harder. But the town still breathed. She moved along the wall, checking watchposts. The scars of the last battle were everywhere. Char on the palisade, a scorch mark that ran like a claw across the gate, a place where the earth had buckled and would not settle. The auroral lens lay sealed in the deepest storeroom under 3 locks and a dozen oaths. Even so, the lay beneath Jorvik hummed like a plucked string, never quite still.
"Captain,"
called a young guard, snapping a hand to his chest in salute. Eira nodded. The title still felt strange. She set a hand on the rough timber and looked out across the river. The morning light turned the water to pewter. Beyond the banks, the farms stretched dull and brown with early thaw. She tried to let the rhythm of work settle her. It did not. A horn blew from the lower gate, 2 short notes, 1 long. Messenger. They met in the shadow of the gatehouse, a rider with a blown horse and ice in his beard, mud up to his knees. He slid from the saddle and almost fell. Brander caught his elbow and held him steady. Brander had grown thicker in the shoulders since the last campaign, but his eyes were the same, blunt, fierce, honest.
"Easy,"
he said.
"Drink."
The rider took a cup, wiped a sleeve across his mouth, and fixed on Eira.
"From Markfell, Captain. The fog came down. It wasn't weather."
Eira's jaw tightened.
"How many?"
"A score dead. More, not right."
He swallowed hard.
Cattle ran into walls. A boy cut his own hair down to the scalp and laughed until his lips bled. Crops blackened where it touched. The old stones at the ridge were warm to the hand.
He shuddered.
"They say a shadow spoke. In the fog, it knew our names."
Whispering shadow, the survivors would call it. Eira didn't need the name to feel the wrongness climb her spine.
"Sigvard?"
she asked.
"In the hall,"
Brander said. They crossed the yard at a steady pace that was not quite a run. Inside, the great hall held the smell of smoke and salt meat, the pillars wrapped with fresh-cut boughs to sweeten the air. Sigvard stood at the high seat, bent over a spread of rough maps. Beside him, 2 councillors whispered. One of them flinched when he saw Eira, then smoothed his face into something neutral. Eira did not bow. She never had to. Sigvard straightened, and for a moment she saw the boy he'd been under his father's hand. Then the mask of the Jarl's son returned.
"You heard?"
he said.
"Merkfell.
Eira replied.
Fog that kills. Voices."
He grimaced.
"We have 3 other reports, smaller. A churned field at Largsbrae, a well that froze solid with green ice and scald, a fisherman at Hrafnvik who walked into the tide and smiled while the water took him. All near stones, all near the lines."
The ley lines. Always the ley lines.
"We broke the cult.
One councillor said, as if reciting a charm.
We sealed their lands. These are aftershocks."
"Aftershocks don't speak your name,"
Brander snapped. Sigvard held up a hand for quiet, eyes on Eira. He did not look away, not even once.
"Take a team,"
he said.
"Go to Markfell. See it with your own eyes. If this is the start of a new war, I will not learn it from rumours."
Eira bowed her head, once, short and sure.
"I'll leave within the hour."
He leaned closer, dropping his voice.
"If there is any trace of the cult, bring it back. If there is not—"
He paused, the words coming hard.
"If it is the lay, tell me before you tell anyone else."
He did not have to finish the thought. Panic could do the work of 1,000 enemies. Eira felt the humming under the floorboards, felt it in her teeth.
"We'll be careful,"
she said. On the way out, The counsellor who had flinched reached for her sleeve.
Captain, the lens, are you sure it is secure?
Eira met his eyes.
Leona's seals have not failed us yet.
That was all she gave him. They rode under a sky the colour of old iron. Brander took 6 men who would not rattle easily. 2 Skraeling hunters paced them on the tree line, moving silent as deer, eyes up for signs. Eira set the pace just under a gallop and did not talk much. She felt the drag of the earth under the horses' hooves change as they left the river plain for the low hills, an old pull, a tug like a thread wrapped round her wrist. Mörkfell lay beyond a ridge cut by standing stones. The stones were not tall, but they had a weight that was not in their size. Lichen flecked them like old scars. Children had left bits of ribbon tied to the nearest one. The ribbons hung limp. The air grew colder as they climbed.
Smell that?
Brander said. It was not rot. It was not smoke. It was a clean, hurting smell, like snow when the sky is clear and the wind comes down from the north to cut your lungs. Eira felt it on her tongue. It tingled the way a lie does when you hear it. They crested the ridge and saw the fog. It filled the bowl of the valley like milk in a wooden dish. It did not move with the wind. It did not thin along the edges. It lay from field to field in a level line too neat for weather. Where it touched the wheat, the stalks bent and blackened as if burned without flame. Where it touched the pasture, the grass turned a dull grey, and the sheep did not move at all. One stood with its head tilted like it was listening. Its eye rolled white. Its breath came slow and shallow. Eira did not think it would ever be right again. Brander spat to one side.
I hate it.
So do I.
Eira said. They tied the horses well back and went on foot. The fog had a skin to it, a line as sharp as a blade. Eira crouched at the edge and reached a hand toward the white. The air there prickled. The tiny hairs on her arm rose. Something old and deep in her said, "No farther." She picked up a stone and rolled it into the fog. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the fog dimpled around the stone and flowed over it like cloth over a knee. The stone sank and vanished. The fog smoothed. That was all. One of the Skraeling hunters, a woman with a long scar along her jaw, spoke in a low voice.
In our language, we call this kind of breath kulukut, the breath that is not for lungs.
Does it carry a voice?
Eira asked. The woman did not answer. The other hunter made the sign her people used to ward off the unquiet dead and stepped back.
Captain,
Brander said,
look.
A line cut straight through the fog like a path drawn with a rule. It led from the edge of the fields toward the standing stones on the far side of the village, then down again toward a scatter of low houses and a chapel hut whose door hung open. The path did not widen or wander. It was a simple scar through white.
Stay on the line,
Eira said.
Don't touch the fog.
They stepped into the cut and found their boots on bare earth. Even the worms had fled. The silence there had a shape. It had corners. They moved between houses that still held plates on tables and little boots on doorsteps. Eira saw a comb with 3 hairs caught in its teeth. She saw a dull spoon that looked newly polished because someone had been rubbing it when the fog came. She saw 2 chickens perched on a beam indoors with their heads tucked under their wings and knew they would not wake. At the square, the fog reached the well and then peeled away from it, leaving a clean circle the size of a shield. Frost rimed the stones. The bucket rope had snapped. It lay in loops, like a dead snake.
Eira,
Brander said, very soft. A woman sat on the chapel doorstep with both hands folded around a charm of carved bone. Her eyes were open. They were clear and brown. Eira saw her chest rise and fall. She went to her knees in front of the woman and spoke her name. The messenger had given it. Gudrun.
Gudrun,
Eira said.
I'm Eira of Jorvik. Do you hear me?
Gudrun's lips moved. No sound came. Then, in a voice no louder than the shift of wool, she said,
It said my name. It said my mother's name as she said it, not as we say it now.
What did the shadow ask?
Eira kept her own voice even, gentle.
Did it ask you to do anything?
Gudrun's eyes shifted over Eira's shoulder and fixed on something only she could see.
It asked me to open my mouth and breathe it in. It asked me to stand in the field and be very still so it could count my heartbeats. It asked me to give it the names of all the doors in our house.
Eira did not touch her. She wanted to.
Do you know where it came from?
Gudrun's gaze slid to the ridge.
From the stones. They were warm, like bread.
Brander swore under his breath and stood, hands on hips, jaw tight.
The lines are wrong here.
Eira rose too. She felt it in her bones now. The hum, yes, but off-key. The way a string sings when it is tuned far too tight. She looked toward the standing stones. The path in the fog ran true as a spear.
Watch her,
she told Brander.
If she speaks again, listen to every word.
He nodded. The Skraeling hunters had already put themselves between Gudrun and the fog's edge, without being asked. Eira followed the path uphill alone. The white rose around her like walls. Twice she heard footsteps that did not match her own. Twice she saw nothing when she turned. A whisper ran down the path ahead, a sound like dry grass rubbed between fingers. Then a word formed in it. Eira. She stopped. The fog pressed on her shoulders like someone's hands. She was not cold, but she wanted to shiver. Eira, the whisper said again. It was not quite a voice. It was closer to memory. It was close enough to hurt.
Not today,
she told it, and walked on. At the ridge, the standing stones crouched in two arcs that almost met. The earth inside them had cracked. Thin steam rose from the splits, and the mud around them had bubbled as if on a slow boil, then frozen that way. A dead crow lay upside down in the circle with its feet curled and its beak open. The smell was stronger here, the clean, wrong cold. She knelt and pressed her palm to a stone. Heat bit her. She snatched her hand back, hissed, then forced herself to put it there again, counting 1, 2, 3. The heat was not steady. It pulsed. It matched the hum in her teeth.
Tell me what you are,
she said to the stone, because there was no one else to ask. The fog answered with a little turn that had nothing to do with wind. A faint line of dark cut through the white, a hair-thin split that led down the backside of the ridge toward the old cattle path. Eira stood and followed it to a low place where the ground had been scraped clean. Carved marks scored the dirt. Not runes, not letters. A lattice like a net made by a careful hand that did not know how to end it. Someone had tried to draw a ward without knowing why it worked. She crouched and traced one of the lines with a fingertip, keeping her skin just above the dirt. It tingled. She found a boot print at the edge of the lattice, turned half out as if the maker had heard a sound and looked up. The sole was thick. The heel had a notch in it. The mark was not fresh, and the fog had not eaten it.
Brander,
she called. Her voice went nowhere. She tried again, louder. The fog swallowed it whole. She stood and spoke to the air instead.
You can say my name as many times as you like,
she said.
It does not make me yours.
The fog stirred once. Then it settled, patient. Eira picked her way back down to the square. Brander had wrapped a cloak around Gudrun and given her warm broth. The woman had not drunk it. She held it like a candle and watched the steam.
Find a house outside the fog,
Eira said.
Start a proper fire. Get the living out. No one goes in unless they can keep to the cut. No one touches the white.
Brander nodded.
The stones.
Pulsing,
Eira said.
A false net scratched in the dirt above the cattle path. Someone drew it without knowing the language.
Cult?
He asked.
Maybe. Maybe a copyist.
She looked at the ridge. The fog lay like a beast at rest, flanks rising and falling in a slow, deep breath.
Either way, this is past the cult. This is the lines themselves, pushed wrong.
Branda followed her gaze, then looked back at her face.
Leona?
Leona.
Eira said. She felt something loosen a notch in her chest at the name.
Send a runner. Tell her she's needed. Tell her the old stones are warm.
Branda squeezed her shoulder and went to his work. Eira stood in the square until the light weakened and the fog kept its shape. The whispers came now and then. They used names that meant something in Mirkfell. Once, not more than a breath, she thought she heard another name under them, a name she had carried like a wound that never closed. Vestinus. She did not turn her head. She did not answer. When the first stars showed, she walked the line round the fog 2 more times, counting steps, mapping in her mind, feeling for the places where the hum rose or fell. By full dark, they had moved the living into a barn on the far hill and set a bright flame in its loft window. The hunters took first watch. Branda took second. Eira stayed until the barn light steadied, then went alone to the edge of the white. She stood a long while and listened. Behind the fog's whisper lay a thinner sound, almost too fine to hear. The thread of the ley line itself stretched tight until it sang a note, just shy of breaking.
Enough.
She said to no one, and to everything.
We will set you right.
The fog did not answer. The ley hummed and hummed. Eira turned her back on the white and started down toward the fire and the tired people and the work that would follow. Tomorrow she would ride to the next node. Tomorrow she would meet whatever waited there. Tonight she would write to Leona with hands that did not shake. Jorvik could not have another war. Veldrith could not afford one. But war had a way of choosing its own hour, and Eira knew the sound when it cleared its throat. On the ridge, the standing stones gleamed dull as old iron in the starshine. Somewhere across the valley, a fox barked once and was quiet. Eira took a breath, let it out slow, and walked on.